The Discovery, Captain. Zara's tentacles twitched nervously as she studied the readings on her command screen. Her violet skin had turned a pale shade of worry, and her three eyes focused intently on the data streaming across the display. The deep space sensors of her exploration vessel, the Stellar Wanderer, had detected something that should not exist in this region of space. "Commander Nix, what exactly are we looking at?" she asked her second-in-command, a tall, crystalline being whose body sparkled with internal light. Nix's crystal formations chimed softly as he processed the information. "Captain, we have detected a vessel approximately 15,000 units from our position. It appears to be drifting without power in the Forbidden Quadrant." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member knew what the Forbidden Quadrant meant. It was the region of space surrounding Sol 3, the legendary death world that had claimed the lives of every explorer brave enough to venture near it. No ship was supposed to survive in that radiation-soaked nightmare of a solar system. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Keth, the ship's chief scientist. Her fur-covered form hunched over her instruments as she double-checked the readings. "Nothing can survive that close to the Sol system. The radiation alone would cook any known species within hours." Captain Zara had commanded exploration vessels for over 2 decades. She had seen strange phenomena throughout the galaxy, but this defied all logic. "Distance to the vessel?" "Closing to 12,000 units, Captain," Nix reported. "The vessel appears to be constructed from multiple different alloys. The design is unprimitive." As they drew closer, the mysterious ship became visible on their main display. Captain Zara's tentacles recoiled in shock. The vessel looked like it had been assembled by someone who had never seen a proper starship before. Its hull was a patchwork of different metals, welded together in seemingly random patterns. Strange protrusions jutted out at odd angles, and the entire structure looked like it might fall apart at any moment. "By the ancient stars," Dr. Keth breathed. "What kind of civilization would build something so crude?" "Captain," called out Lieutenant Voss from the communications station. His insectoid features clicked with nervousness. "I'm detecting faint life signs aboard the vessel. Very faint, but definitely there." Zara's mind raced. Life signs meant survivors, and survivors meant a rescue mission. But survivors from the Death World sector meant something else entirely. Something that might change everything they knew about the galaxy. "Prepare a boarding party," she ordered. "Full environmental suits and maximum caution. If there are beings alive on that ship, we need to know how they survived." An hour later, Captain Zara floated through the docking tube that connected her ship to the mysterious vessel. Beside her floated Dr. Keth and Security Chief Braxton, a massive armored being whose species had evolved on a high-gravity world. Their environmental suits hummed quietly as they entered the alien ship. The moment they crossed the threshold, Zara knew they had encountered something unprecedented. The corridor was too narrow, the ceiling too low, and everything about the design felt wrong. Yet the artificial gravity was functioning perfectly, and the air recycling systems were operating smoothly despite the ship's apparent age. "These readings are incredible," Dr. Keth whispered through the comm system. "This technology is primitive by our standards, yet it's been functioning flawlessly for what appears to be decades." They moved deeper into the vessel, passing rooms filled with equipment they couldn't identify. The walls were covered with symbols that bore no resemblance to any known galactic language. Pictures decorated many surfaces showing strange bipedal creatures with pale skin and no natural armor or protective features. "Captain," Braxton's deep voice rumbled through the comm. "These creatures in the pictures look incredibly fragile. How could they possibly survive on a death world?" Before Zara could respond, they reached what was clearly the ship's main cargo bay. Rows of cylindrical chambers lined the walls, each one glowing with soft internal light. "Stasis pods. Sweet mother of the void," Dr. Keth gasped. "They're all occupied." Zara approached the nearest pod and peered through its transparent surface. Inside lay one of the pale creatures from the pictures. It was smaller than any of them, with thin limbs and soft-looking skin. Its head was covered with brown hair, and its face looked peaceful in artificial sleep. "The stasis systems are functioning perfectly," Dr. Keth reported, scanning the pods with her instruments. These beings have been asleep for approximately 60 standard cycles. 60 cycles? Braxton echoed. Nothing could drift in the Death World sector for that long and survive. Zara studied the sleeping creature more closely. It looked so fragile, so vulnerable, yet somehow it had survived where entire fleets of galactic explorers had perished. Dr. Keth, can we safely wake one of them? I believe so, Captain. The pod's automated systems seem designed for revival. But are you certain that's wise? We don't know what these creatures are capable of. Zara made her decision. We wake one, carefully. If there are survivors from the Death World, we need to understand how they managed it. Dr. Keth worked at the pod's control panel, her instruments, interfacing with the primitive but functional technology. Slowly, the pod began its revival sequence. Warm air circulated, lights brightened, and the transparent cover retracted with a soft hiss. The creature's eyes opened slowly, blinking in the light. It sat up with a fluid motion that spoke of surprising strength beneath its fragile appearance. When it saw the 3 aliens standing around its pod, Zara expected panic, fear, or aggression. Instead, the creature smiled. Hello, it said in a pleasant voice that the universal translator easily processed. I'm Marcus. The simple greeting stunned the 3 aliens into silence. This being had just awakened to find itself surrounded by creatures from another world, yet it acted as if this was perfectly normal. You're not human, Marcus observed, looking at each of them with clear, intelligent eyes. Different species, I'm guessing. How long have we been asleep? Dr. Keth found her voice first. You've been in stasis for approximately 60 cycles. We found your vessel drifting near the Sol system. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. 60 cycles sounds about right. We were hoping to reach the trade routes by now. He looked around the cargo bay. Are my people safe? They're still sleeping, Captain Zara said carefully. We only revived you to understand how you survived. Survived what? Marcus asked, seeming genuinely confused. Your ship's logs indicate you came from Sol 3, Braxton rumbled. From Earth. That's classified as a Death World. No expedition sent there has ever returned. Marcus's expression shifted slightly, and for just a moment Zara saw something in his eyes that made her survival instincts whisper warnings. It was like looking at a predator that was simply choosing not to hunt. Earth's not that dangerous, Marcus said calmly. Sure, we had some environmental problems toward the end, but humans lived there for hundreds of thousands of years. It's all about adaptation. Adaptation? Dr. Keth asked weakly. To a world that kills everything that lands on it? Marcus shrugged, a gesture that somehow seemed both casual and threatening. You learn to deal with what life throws at you. Storms, predators, diseases, natural disasters. You either adapt or you don't make it. He stood up smoothly, and Zara noticed that despite his smaller size, he moved with a grace that suggested deadly competence. What happened to your expeditions exactly? They were destroyed, Zara said. Ships torn apart by storms, crews killed by hostile life forms, entire teams wiped out by environmental hazards. Sounds like they weren't prepared, Marcus said matter-of-factly. Earth can be rough if you don't know what you're doing, but it's not impossible. We did it for millennia. The casual way he spoke about planetary-scale dangers made Zara's tentacles curl with unease. This creature was discussing mass extinction events like they were minor inconveniences. How do you adapt to planet-killing storms? Dr. Keth asked. Better shelters, early warning systems, knowing when and where to take cover, Marcus replied. Sometimes you lose people, but the species learns and gets stronger. Sometimes you lose people, Braxton repeated slowly. You speak of death very casually. Death is part of life, Marcus said with a slight smile. On Earth, everything is trying to kill you. The weather, the animals, the plants, the diseases, sometimes even other humans. You learn to accept it and work around it. At that moment, alarms began blaring throughout both ships. Captain Zara's comm system crackled to life with an urgent message from her bridge crew. Captain, we have multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Galactic Union military vessels closing fast. Marcus's demeanor changed instantly. The friendly, casual human was gone, replaced by something that made Zara's species memory scream warnings about ancient predators. Military response, Marcus said quietly. They're coming to deal with the human problem, aren't they? How did you know? Dr. Keth gasped. The panic in your voices, the way you've been talking about death worlds and impossible survival. Marcus moved toward the other stasis pods. Someone decided that humans existing is a threat that needs to be eliminated. We could try to negotiate, Zara said desperately. Explain that you're peaceful. Marcus looked at her with something that might have been pity. Captain, humans have been dealing with extinction-level threats our entire existence. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, plagues that killed 90% of our population. We survived them all, he began activating revival sequences on other pods. And you know what we learned from all that death and destruction? When someone comes to kill you, you don't try to reason with them. You make sure they regret the attempt. More pods began opening, and Zara watched in growing alarm as humans began waking up. Each one assessed the situation quickly and immediately, began moving with the same deadly purpose she had seen in Marcus. A woman with short black hair looked at the aliens and asked, Status? Possible hostile contact incoming, Marcus replied. Unknown number of ships, probably military. The woman nodded. Wake everyone, full alert. Already on it, Commander Chen. As more humans awakened and began preparing for whatever was coming, Zara realized she was witnessing something unprecedented. These weren't refugees fleeing a dying world. These were survivors of the deadliest planet in the galaxy, and they were showing exactly what that meant. Commander Chen, Dr. Keth said nervously. Perhaps we can avoid conflict. The Galactic Union has protocols for first contact. Chen looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. Doctor, humans have been fighting for survival since we first stood upright. We've battled ice ages, predators, diseases, natural disasters, and each other. We've been invaded by our own species countless times throughout history. She gestured toward the awakening humans around them. When unknown ships show up with military intentions, we don't assume they're here to make friends. Experience has taught us that assumption gets you killed. More humans were awake now, perhaps 50 in total, and they moved with a coordination that spoke of shared hardship and mutual trust. They weren't panicking or arguing. They were preparing. How many ships? Chen asked Marcus. Unknown. Zara's people detected multiple vessels. Chen nodded and turned to Captain Zara. Captain, I appreciate you waking us up instead of just spacing us. That shows good intentions. But I need to know. Are those ships coming to destroy us or capture us? Zara's tentacles writhed with anxiety. I don't know. Admiral Thrak commands the local military district. He has a reputation for direct solutions to problems. Meaning he shoots first and asks questions later, Chen said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Zara admitted. Chen smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Then we understand each other perfectly. The humans continued their preparations, and Zara found herself fascinated despite her fear. They worked with an efficiency born of desperation and honed by generations of survival. No wasted motion, no unnecessary chatter, just focused preparation for what was coming. Commander, Marcus reported, all pods are cycling through revival. We'll have everyone awake within the hour. Good. How are our systems? Ships in better shape than expected. Engines are responding, weapons are charging, life support is stable. Weapons? Zara realized with growing horror that this primitive-looking ship was armed. You have weapons? She asked. Chen looked at her as if the question was absurd. Of course we have weapons. You don't survive on a death world by being helpless. Through the ship's communication system, Admiral Thrak's voice boomed with authority. Unknown vessels, this is Admiral Thrak of the Galactic Union Fleet. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Any resistance will be met with lethal force. The humans listened to the ultimatum with calm expressions. No fear, no panic, just professional assessment of a threat. Well, Chen said quietly, that answers that question. She activated the ship's communication system. Her voice, when she responded, was steady and clear. Admiral Thrak, this is Commander Chen of the Earth vessel New Dawn. We are refugees seeking passage through galactic space. We have no hostile intentions. Negative. Thrak's reply came back immediately. All entities from the Death World are to be eliminated on sight. You have 60 seconds to surrender, or we will open fire. The bridge fell silent. Then Chen smiled. Again, and this time Zara saw something in that expression that made her understand why Earth was classified as a death world. It wasn't because nothing could survive there. It was because the things that did survive there were absolutely terrifying. The confrontation Admiral Thrak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fist, studying the tactical display with cold satisfaction. His species, the Vorthak, were natural warriors with chitinous armor and mandibles designed for cutting through enemy flesh. He had personally commanded the destruction of 12 different threat species, and he saw no reason why these humans should be any different. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "we have 3 ships in formation, the research vessel Stellar Wanderer and 2 unknown vessels connected by docking tubes. Total estimated enemy population, 800 individuals." Enemy population, Thrak repeated with satisfaction. "I like that phrasing. Weapon status? All ships ready to fire on your command, Admiral. Plasma cannons charged, missile tubes loaded." Thrak's mandibles clicked with anticipation. "Open fire in 30 seconds. No survivors." On the bridge of the New Dawn, Commander Chen watched the tactical display with the calm focus of someone who had spent her entire life facing impossible odds. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their hands moving over controls that looked primitive but functioned with deadly precision. "Maya," she said to her tactical officer. "Weapon status?" "All systems green, Commander," Maya replied. Her fingers danced over the targeting computer. "We've got lock on all 3 vessels. Kinetic interceptors loaded, electromagnetic pulse charges ready, and our surprise packages are armed. How long until everyone's awake?" 15 minutes for full revival, but we've got 300 combat-capable personnel ready now." Chen nodded. 300 humans against 3 military vessels with crews numbering in the thousands. Under normal circumstances, it would be suicide. But humans had never faced normal circumstances. "Dr. Keth," Chen said to the alien scientist, who was still aboard their ship, "you might want to get back to your vessel. This is about to get very unpleasant." Dr. Keth's fur was standing on end. "Commander, perhaps we can still negotiate. Admiral Thrak is known for his aggression, but the Galactic Council has strict rules about first contact." "Doctor," Chen said gently, "humans learned a long time ago that rules don't mean much when someone wants you dead. Admiral Thrak isn't interested in first contact protocols. He's interested in making sure we don't survive." She gestured toward the tactical display showing the 3 military ships in attack formation. "Look at their positioning. Classic elimination pattern. They're not here to capture us or study us. They're here to make sure we never speak to anyone else in the galaxy." Through the communication system, Admiral Thrak's voice boomed again. 30 seconds have elapsed. You will surrender immediately or face annihilation." Chen activated the ship's intercom. "All personnel, this is the commander. We are facing hostile forces with overwhelming numerical superiority. They have given us a choice: surrender and probably die, or fight and maybe live. I know what choice humans make." Throughout the ship, humans responded with grim determination. They had faced extinction before, many times throughout their history. They knew the drill. "Admiral Thrak," Chen said into the communication system, "this is your final warning. We are peaceful refugees seeking safe passage. Any attack on our vessel will be considered an act of war." Thrak's laughter echoed through space. "War? You primitive creatures from a death world think you can threaten the Galactic Union fleet? Open fire. All vessels, maximum firepower." The 3 military ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Plasma bolts and missiles streaked through space toward the human vessel. enough destructive power to vaporize a small moon. And then something happened that Admiral Thrak had never seen in his 30 years of military service. The human ship didn't try to run. It didn't attempt to surrender. Instead, it did something impossible. It fired back. But these weren't normal weapons. The humans had launched what appeared to be simple kinetic projectiles, chunks of metal accelerated to tremendous velocity. Thrak's tactical officer laughed at the primitive display. "Sir, they're throwing rocks at us. Our shields will absorb the impact easily." The first projectile struck the lead ship's shields and bounced off harmlessly. The second projectile did the same. But the third projectile was different. As it struck the energy barrier, it exploded into thousands of smaller fragments, each one carrying an electromagnetic pulse charge. The lead ship's shields collapsed instantly. What in the name of the void was that? Thrak roared. Before his officers could answer, more projectiles were incoming. These ones were different too. They carried payloads designed to exploit the exact weaknesses that human scientists had identified in Galactic Union shield technology during their 60 years of drifting through space, studying and analyzing every piece of electromagnetic radiation they encountered. "Shields failing on ships 2 and 3, the tactical officer reported. "How did they know our shield frequencies?" "Return fire," Thrak commanded. "All weapons." But the humans weren't finished. As the military ship's weapons recharged for another volley, the New Dawn did something that violated every law of space combat that Thrak knew. It rammed the lead ship, but it didn't ram the hull. Instead, the human vessel used its primitive but incredibly robust construction to physically grab onto the military ship's hull with mechanical grapples, binding the two vessels together. "They're boarding us," someone screamed over the communication system. Through the viewports of his bridge, Thrak could see human figures in environmental suits, cutting through his ship's hull with tools that looked like they had been improvised from mining equipment. They moved with a coordination and purpose that spoke of extensive training in exactly this type of operation. "How are they cutting through our armor?" his engineering officer asked in panic. The answer came from Dr. Keth, whose voice echoed through the communication system from the research vessel. "Admiral, humans spent thousands of years learning to survive in the harshest environment imaginable. They know how to improvise weapons from anything available. They know how to turn any tool into an instrument of destruction." The first wave of human boarders breached the hull and poured into the ship's corridors. Thrak watched on his internal monitors as his security forces engaged the invaders. It was a massacre. The humans moved through his ship like they had been born for exactly this kind of combat. They used the ship's own systems against the crew, turning the artificial gravity generators into weapons, using the ventilation system to deploy gas that incapacitated entire sections, and somehow managing to hack into systems that should have been impossible for primitives to understand. "Sir," his tactical officer said in a shaking voice, "we're receiving reports from the other ships. They're being boarded too." Somehow the humans deployed from their ship to multiple targets simultaneously. Thrak realized with growing horror that the humans had planned this entire engagement. They had anticipated exactly how the military ships would attack, exactly how the crews would respond, and they had prepared countermeasures for everything. "How?" he whispered. "How did they know?" Commander Chen's voice came through the communication system, calm and professional. "Admiral Thrak, your forces are defeated. Your ships are under our control. I'm offering you the opportunity to surrender." "Never," Thrak roared. "The Galactic Union does not surrender to primitives." "Admiral," Chen replied, "humans have been fighting for survival for millions of years. We've faced enemies with superior technology, superior numbers, and superior resources. We've fought ice ages, natural disasters, diseases, and each other. Do you know what we learned from all those battles?" Thrak said nothing, his mandibles clicking with rage. "We learned that technology doesn't win wars. Numbers don't win wars. The willingness to do whatever it takes to survive wins wars. And humans have been doing whatever it takes for a very, very long time." On his tactical display, Thrak could see that all three of his ships were now showing human life signs throughout their corridors. His crews were either captured or dead, his weapons were offline, and his shields were down. "You've lost, Admiral," The question now is whether this ends with your death or with a conversation. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Thrak felt something he had never experienced before: fear. Not fear of death, which was acceptable for a warrior, but fear of facing an enemy that was fundamentally different from anything he had ever encountered. These humans had turned a hopeless situation into a complete victory, using nothing but superior tactics, improvised weapons, and a willingness to take risks that no sane species would consider. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "Safe passage through galactic space," Chen replied. "Recognition as a refugee population seeking a new home. And an end to the standing order to exterminate humans on sight. I don't have the authority to make those decisions." "Then we'll speak to someone who does." An hour later, Admiral Thrak found himself aboard the human vessel, surrounded by beings that looked fragile but moved like apex predators. Commander Chen sat across from him in what appeared to be a conference room, though everything about the space felt wrong to his senses. "Admiral," Chen said, "I want you to understand something about humans. We didn't want this fight. We're refugees from a dying world, looking for a place where our children can grow up safely." She gestured to images on the wall showing human families, children playing, people working together. "But we're also survivors of the deadliest world in the galaxy. We've been tested by every form of extinction event imaginable, and we're still here. Your people fought my trained military crews like it was easy," Thrak said, his pride warring. "With his practical nature, it wasn't easy," Chen replied. "But it was necessary. Humans have a saying, 'Necessity is the mother of invention.' When we absolutely have to survive, we find a way." She pulled up tactical displays showing the recent battle. "We spent 60 years in stasis, but our ship's computers were analyzing every electromagnetic signature, every communication protocol, every piece of technology we encountered. When we woke up, we knew exactly how your weapons worked, how your shields functioned, and how your crews would respond to different threats. You studied us while you slept? We studied everyone. Humans don't like surprises. We prepare for every possibility." Dr. Keth, who had been listening from the corner of the room, spoke up. "Commander, what do you want from the galaxy? What are human intentions?" Chen looked at her with tired but determined eyes. "We want what every species wants, Doctor. A safe place to live, the chance to raise our children, the opportunity to contribute something positive to the universe." She stood and walked to a viewport showing the stars beyond. "But we also want to be left alone to do it. Humans have learned that the universe is a dangerous place, and that safety comes from being too dangerous to attack." "Are you threatening the galaxy?" Thrak asked. "No, Admiral. We're offering the galaxy a choice. You can treat us as enemies and discover what humans are capable of when they're fighting for survival. Or you can treat us as potential allies and discover what humans are capable of when they're fighting for something they believe in." She turned back to face them. "Humans have survived everything our death world could throw at us. Storms that could tear apart cities, predators that made your worst nightmares look tame, diseases that killed billions, and wars that lasted for centuries. We survived it all because we learned to work together when it mattered. What happens now?" "Doctor," Keth asked. "Now we find out if the galaxy is wise enough to recognize opportunity when it sees it," Chen said. "Humans have knowledge about survival, about adaptation, about solving impossible problems. We've turned the deadliest world in known space into a home for billions of people." She smiled, and for the first time Thrak saw warmth in the expression rather than threat. "Imagine what we could accomplish if we were working with the galaxy instead of against it." 6 months later, the Galactic Council met in emergency session to discuss the human situation. Admiral Thrak, still recovering from what military historians were already calling the most tactically brilliant defeat in modern warfare, presented his report. "The humans are unlike any species we have ever encountered," he concluded. "They are dangerous, yes, but they are also invaluable. In the past 6 months, they have provided solutions to 17 different technical problems that our best scientists couldn't solve. They have shared medical knowledge that has already saved thousands of lives, and they have demonstrated a capacity for innovation that could benefit the entire galaxy. The council chambers buzzed with discussion. Finally, the Prime Minister stood. "What is your recommendation, Admiral?" Thrak looked around the chamber at representatives from dozens of different worlds. "My recommendation is that we do something unprecedented in Galactic Union history. We invite them to join us, not as subjects or refugees, but as equal partners." "Equal partners with primitives from a death world?" challenged the representative from Arcturus. "Equal partners with the only species in galactic history to turn a death world into a home," Thrak replied. "Equal partners with beings who have proven that they can overcome any obstacle, solve any problem, and survive any threat." He paused, thinking of Commander Chen and her quiet confidence in the face of overwhelming odds. "The question isn't whether we can afford to accept them. The question is whether we can afford not to." The vote was close, but it passed. For the first time in galactic history, a species from a death world was granted full membership in the Galactic Union. Commander Chen received the news aboard the New Dawn, now docked at Galactic Station Prime, the largest space station in known space. Around her, humans were already beginning to integrate with galactic society, sharing their knowledge and learning from other species. "Commander," Dr. Keth said, approaching with a datapad, "the first joint human galactic research teams have been approved. They want our help with terraforming projects on 12 different worlds." Chen smiled. "Humans know a lot about making hostile environments livable. I think we can help with that." She looked out through the station's massive viewports at the ships moving through space, representatives of dozens of different species working together. Somewhere among them were human vessels, no longer refugees drifting in space, but equal partners in the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known. "Dr. Keth," she said, "do you know what the most important thing about survival is?" "What's that, Commander?" "Knowing when to stop fighting and start building." As the New Dawn powered up for its first official mission as part of the Galactic Union fleet, Chen felt something she hadn't experienced since leaving Earth. Hope. Not just for survival, but for a future where humans could use their hard-won knowledge to help others thrive. The death world had made them strong. Now it was time to see what they could accomplish among the stars.